Hi, I'm Preston Thompson, guitar maker, and this is the best part of my job when I get to present a new guitar to a player that can really bring out the best that they have in them. And Tim, this is great. I've looked forward a long time while I was making that instrument to get it in your hands, and day's finally here. And I tell you, I'm thrilled.
Thank you, Preston. It's an honor for me to play this guitar. When I was a kid, I saw Peter Rowan play at the Bluegrass Festival of the United States in Louisville, which was a huge deal for me because it seems like all the great players at that time were there. Emmylou and Doyle Lawson, J.D. Crowe, all those guys, and of course Peter Rowan. And I really loved that guitar. It seemed very unique, and of course the way Peter plays it is awesome. And so, of course, was aware of the guitar that Preston built for Charles Sawtelle. And interestingly, I played a Breedlove revival for a while, and Preston was a big part of designing that guitar for Breedlove. So it's kind of a small world. It's almost like it was meant to be that we're here right now. So a lot of respect for Preston, and I'm of course privileged and honored to have this guitar. And I'm really looking forward to working with Preston. And thank you, sir.
Oh, thank you, Tim. It's been great. And we hope to be working with him for a long time and getting his input on designing some instruments, because Tim's not only a great player, but he builds also, and so he's kind of the double insight into what makes instruments tick, and so it's going to be a lot of fun.
But I mean, one thing that is good about us kind of hooking up is that we both like just vintage, almost real traditional guitars, and so it's almost like there was nothing I could think of I wanted to be different. I don't think. I mean, other than just the neck, fingerboard width, and I wanted herringbone, rosewood, Brazilian red spruce top. I mean, that's just all kind of typical traditional stuff. I don't think there was really anything custom that I could think of, was there?
No, not necessarily custom on anything. I mean, we didn't put any position markers on the fretboard, but
Right.
little things like that. But other than that, pretty straightforward. But I did talk to Tim a lot about the tone that he wanted, and I know that he preferred a little bit more on the warm side. And so I worked at that both in terms of how I can graduate at the top and brace the top, and then even the components like the nut and saddle to bring out those sort of characteristics. So hopefully I hit it on a mark, but man, you make it sound good.
Well, thank you, sir. Yeah, well, we did do a little bit of toner on the top because to me red spruce is just a little too glaring white. So he did that, but it looks perfectly natural. And I did want the fingerboard, as far as new guitars are concerned, I wanted the fingerboard to be thinner than that you would normally make a new guitar, because I wanted it to be almost like an older one that had been planed a time or two, So, and to get some of the weight off of it as well.
When I first started building guitars in about 1979, I was building sort of my own design, and they sounded good, and I still see them from time to time. But I had gotten to know Charles Sawtelle when Hot Rise was just first forming and getting together, and we struck up a friendship. And Charles, of course, not only worked at the Denver Folklore Center and knew a ton about guitars, but he also had a fantastic 1937 D28, 1929 0045, and some other instruments that were just outstanding. And Charles knew them inside and out, and he used to come to my shop and bring me his instruments. He lent me that 37 D28 for a couple of months one time, and we took photos in it, and back in the days before digital cameras, and notes and measurements and everything. And this happens to be a guitar that I made for Charles based upon as close as I could get it to that 37 D28. Of course, this is more of a 42 style, but Charles picked out all the woods on this and played this guitar for quite a long time. And it's got quite a bit of Sawtelle mojo all over it, and so it's pretty neat.
That's
but
cool.
This guitar and the one that I made for Peter, which I made almost about the same time as this, that's where I kind of made that transition into really building the vintage instruments as close as I could get them to those great guitars in the 1930s. And things like that I really appreciated on working on Tim's guitar was going to a little bit of a thinner fingerboard, and headstock is a little thinner. We were talking about the bridge, that's a little, so I just try to get them as light as I can, and it's always a work in progress. But this is one of the guitars, and I give a ton of credit to Charles Sawtelle, because he's the guy who got me heading in that direction.
And that guitar is the one that you had when you were working on the revival for Breedlove that I played, right?
Well, I had all the measurements on this guitar. When Charles passed away, he had left this guitar to Gene Balhorn, and I didn't have my hands on it, but I had all the measurements and everything from it. So Gene was gracious enough to send it out to me to let me have it for a couple of days. And but this is actually the first time I've seen this guitar since I think 1986. So that's a little bit of a fun trip in itself.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah.